Pastor Jones, I say Larry King Sr. What do you say?
I think of a man who was dedicated to his mother, was dedicated to raising up the next generation of leadership here in Tuskegee, a man who gave of himself. You know, we can't do everything, but we can do something. And he demonstrated that using the skills and the knowledge and the experiences that he had the opportunity to impact the lives of young people and the next generation of leadership. You know, I am saddened to hear of his passing, but we're all a little better for having known him, for having witnessed his applied testimony in this community. The demonstration of love that he shared with young and old alike, and he truly will be missed in this place.
I say that we have lost a true, there are some people who are just like a force of nature, and that is who Larry King was. Larry King Sr., he'd always say. I don't even hardly know where to start, but I know that his transition has moved through this community like a tidal wave as people hear about his passing. Let me start by saying that Larry and I were raised in the same village. We were both raised in the village of Greenwood in Tuskegee Institute, Alabama. We both went to the same elementary school, Chambliss Children's House. We went to the same high school, Tuskegee Institute High School. We were raised in the same church, Greenwood Missionary Baptist Church, but we were raised years apart. So by the time I got old enough to know myself, Larry had already graduated high school and had left Tuskegee. His mother and father, however, were a huge part of the village that raised me. Mrs. King was a staunch member of our church. His father, Mr. Simon King, the late Simon King, actually took my wedding pictures 47 years ago. Larry came home from New York, White Plains, New York, several years ago. And one of the things that I always remember is when I first met him talking about how sad he was to see how much Tuskegee had changed.
Absolutely.
And he was sad, and he was one of the few that I've heard take responsibility for not having stayed in touch and for not having done his part to keep Tuskegee thriving.
And came back up in here to make a move to make it better, didn't he?
Got back, he's put his feet on the ground, and he never stopped working. He was everywhere. When I say he was a force of nature, oh man, Larry was playing tennis. He was taking children all over the region playing tennis because he believed in the benefit that tennis could give young people. He had learned to play here in Tuskegee. He had become some people called him the water man because he delivered water to many people in the community through Mr. Moses Weaver's company. He delivered to our house like every 2 weeks. He'd bring water to the house. I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss the way he honored his mother.
Oh man, amen, 100%.
Larry came and got his mother when she got to a certain age, but she did not want to stay up there, and she insisted on coming home. Well, Larry packed up and he brought her home, and he stayed. He would always say when he'd introduce himself in a public place, like for example, he was a member of the Movement 46. I'm wearing a TM 46 shirt today. He was a member of that organization, along with lots of others. But he would stand up and introduce himself, say, "I'm Lawrence King Sr. And I've been back in Tuskegee," I'm just arbitrarily saying, 8 years, 24 days, and he would go on and he would list them just like that.
Almost down to the minute.
Almost down to the minute he would do that, I guess to remind himself that I am still here and I'm still counting. So anyway, I'll say one last thing about the village that raised the two of us. When I found out yesterday that he had passed, one of my first thoughts was Miss Velma, what happened to Miss Velma. And it wasn't long before someone told me that the Lancasters had her. That did my heart so much good because I knew that the Lancaster family had grown up in the same community as Larry King had grown up in. In fact, I talked to Charles Lancaster today, who I grew up right around the corner from, and his wife and I were next door neighbors, so that's the village spirit that I'm talking about. But he assured me that Miss Velma was resting well. We talked a long time about different things, and he even reminded me that one of the few times that Larry came home from White Plains was to his mother's funeral in 1969. And so now he is stepping in and doing what people do when we care about the village, and he's taking care of Miss Velma until other family members get here. That is the spirit of Tuskegee that I remember, that I want to nourish and revitalize. So Larry King, wow, man, I salute you. I never will forget when I finally declared that I was going to run for office. He said, now you look, I'm going to be your constituent, so I'm going to be making sure you do the right thing. And he was a huge part of my campaign team. I am just going to miss that big laugh. I mean, wherever he was needed to do something of good and of value, he was right there, whether it was playing tennis with the children or delivering water or being a part of the security out at Nature's Garden when the festivals were going on and directing the traffic with the parking out there. Wherever he was needed, he was there. So he is one of those people that was a part of the Tuskegee diaspora, that even though he was in White Plains, never forgot what home was and what home felt like. And he was a returned son, a native son who came home. So Larry, I just wish you a safe journey. I wish you eternal peace, and know that whenever there are tennis courts built in this community, and they will be built, they will be named in your honor. I'm going to push for that. I mean, someone said it at the council meeting last night.
That's beautiful.
That will be your legacy. We love you.
Yeah.
Tell me who Larry King is.
Larry King is, you talking about the black Larry King, or you talking about the other guy?
Yeah, I'm talking about this one. I'm talking about this one.
Yeah, well, this one is a fourth generation Tuskegee Institute native. I was born here and spent 13 years, growing up in this community, running around the hills and all over the campus for those 13 years to 1960, and learned how to play tennis on the campus courts next to Logan Hall. We used to go to swimming classes from 10 to 12, and from 12 to 2 we play tennis, and then from 2 to 4 we go back to the pool. And that was the summer.
So then Tuskegee was different back then from what it is now then, right? Because we don't have those things out here now to do. So what was the situation back in those days as far as social activity and that thing was concerned?
Tuskegee was, as they would say today, was the bomb. We had everything. In fact, if you look at some of the communities named Greenwood throughout the country, they were modeled after Greenwood here in Tuskegee. Back when Booker Washington put this whole community together, along with the other residents of the community, of which my great-grandparents were part of that, we had everything. We had businesses, we had the VA, we had car dealerships, we had banks. Anything that you have now that people go to Montgomery or Auburn, that didn't exist back then. Everything was here in Tuskegee.
And you guys had those black giants too, man. Tell
We
me about
did.
those brilliant
Yeah, we did.
black folks that was running things up in here and educating people.
They were just everyday people to us. You know, they were our neighbors, they were our uncles, our aunts. I'm an only child, but I was pretty much raised by the community. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the village raised me, you know. My father worked for, he was a Tuskegee Airman, but when he came back here to take care of my great-grandmother, my mother and he came back to take care of my great-grandmother in '47, I went into kindergarten at Chambliss Children's House, and everybody was just part of the neighborhood. I mean, you know, we had greats like Chappie James was the son-in-law of the Deacon Watkins at Greenwood Baptist Church, and they were related to the Lancasters, who were up the street from me, and I spent more time in their house than I probably did in my house. You know, there was 7 of them and 1 of me, so I just like joined the family. And then you had the Hendrys who were on the corner, and we just played. You know, everything was playing all around the neighborhood. That's the one thing that I don't see today. Kids are all involved in electronics, cell phones and all like that. We didn't have that. You know, we had to create our own activities. We would go out into the woods, you know, exploring, or we would go onto the campus, into the fields. You know, it's just, everything was in walking distance.
And then education was a priority back in those days.
It was mandatory. You were taught to think creatively. You were taught that you could do anything. You know, that the sky was the limit. In fact, excellence was, there was no question. You were trained to be the best that you could possibly be, to hone your skills, you know, no matter what it is you wanted to do. You had carpentry, you could be an electrician, you could be anything. You know, they taught all of that at the campus, and you could go in and, as they say, monitor classes. Well, you know, we could go into anybody's class. You know,
And you saw all of those black giants flying around in those airplanes doing their things, right?
Yeah, that was a part of it.
Tom Carter up there in an airplane courting his wife in a little bitty airplane. You know,
Right,
that
right.
kind of thing.
Right, you know, one of my fondest memories, because, you know, we had tennis courts all around too. Deacon Watkins had a tennis court right in front of his house. You know, that was the Greenwood tennis court. There were 4 tennis clubs when I left. There was the varsity tennis club, the faculty tennis club, the VA tennis club, and the Greenwood tennis club. You know, and they travel, you know, the adults, they travel all around the country playing other clubs.
Right, we're gonna
Yeah.
get to tennis, but I wanna dig into this history a little bit more here now. There was obviously a problem, because I read that the Tuskegee Airmen could not even go downtown and, you know, situate themselves on the streets.
Well,
So now there was a problem between white folks and black folks, and going to the movie, one side, the other side. How did discrimination affect you? Let me put it that way.
well, it didn't. It didn't affect me. I grew up, my father was a projectionist at the Macon Theater, which was downtown. And yes, there was a white side and there was a black side. But on the black side, we saw movies that on the white side they didn't show. You know, in fact, we had the better of the whole thing. The only reason to come downtown was to come to the movie theater. And
So you
that
guys
was,
basically had a side of the city that had everything that you needed.
correct.
And
correct.
you only had to come among the opposite races if you wanted to.
If you wanted to, correct. You know, I grew up, as I tell people, I didn't even know racism until I went to New York. Okay, because we were protected here. KKK didn't even come in here. Okay, the mass meetings that we had during the civil rights, beginning of the civil rights movement with King, You know, they came here for they'd meet at the churches to raise money or funds for the movement. But we never suffered any of the things that they suffered in Selma or in Birmingham, because again, we were self-contained. People came from all over the world to get an education here and to be a part of this unique community. You know, and I say it was unique because we ran everything.
Well, that is really amazing, man, and I hate how so much of that got lost as time went on, but I know how the system, you know, manipulate things and cleverly maneuver things to take away a good thing that we have.
Right.
Now, you mentioned tennis, and that tennis got soaked into your DNA.
Yeah.
Because every time I hear you open your mouth now, you're talking about tennis. Every time I see you doing something, you're trying to revamp a tennis program and interest in tennis in this area.
There is so much that that you just, once you learn it, it's like riding a bicycle. You don't forget it, you know. And like I said, I learned it here, but I didn't really take it up until I happened to hear about the the American Tennis Association holding their nationals in Detroit. And I had a sister-in-law that lived in Detroit. She was married to one of the dramatics, and we went out there that summer, and I saw Lori McNeil and Zena Garrison playing in the ATA Nationals. And I met a gentleman called Jerry James. You know, he's a football player from San Diego Chargers, big guy, you know, lineman. And he says, well, you like to play the game? I says, yeah, I know how to play the game. He says, well, you can join my club. I said, where's your club? He says, East Orange, New Jersey. You know, Althea Gibson's home. You know, in fact, it's her park. You know, so we're looking for players. You can do it. I said, fine, I'll do that. And I joined. I became a lifetime member, and the rest is history. I've been playing tennis ever since.
You know, and when you're not exposed to something a lot, it's hard for you to really be inspired to do it. And here you may have been exposed to tennis, but until the Williams sisters and these other people that you know came into the mix, tennis was something that black folks didn't really see themselves being a part of, right? What broke that open? I think that's my question.
Well, like everything else, anytime you get talented black people involved in any sport, they pretty much dominate. They take it over. They change the lines, the guidelines of what is possible. You know, we take it to another level, and the entertainment factor of it. It's a healthy sport. It's, you know, Booker Washington had the wherewithal and the foresight to make it a part of the socialization for his students back in 1890. In 1890, we had the first clay courts in the South, basically in Alabama for sure, and I think in New Orleans they had some clay courts, but for black people in the South, Tuskegee Institute was where it was at. And in 1931, they held the Nationals here, and we had on those courts next to Logan Hall, they had a grandstand that would seat 1,000 people. They had lights for night play, and they had over 1,000 people to come to the campus from all over the country, and they stayed on the campus, and they partied, and they held the championships that year. And the Peters sisters, well, they weren't here then, but it was dominated by all of the black players from back in the day.
And who were some of those players who paved the way for the Williams sisters to be where they are in tennis today?
Well, it was the Peters sisters. They were the first sister duo, opposed to the Williams sisters. You had Lori McNeil, Zena Garrison. They're both from Houston. McGregor Park. You know, they came up. You had, oh God, I can't remember. I mean, James Blake, you know, one of the communities that I played in New York, in Yonkers, James Blake and his family, they were part of my clientele. And we played until they went to Connecticut, and eventually they went on to Harvard to play. So that was all a part of the community. Everybody went to the ATA tournaments, regionals, sectionals, nationals, and they grew through that.
Okay, now you were doing what we old men supposed to do, old people, period. You are anxious to revitalize tennis in
Right.
this area, if not all around the world, to make
Yeah.
sure that we stay involved from this point on
Yeah.
and inspire our young people to pick it up. So is that why you pouring so much energy into it now?
That is my goal. You know, I hooked up with, and I say hooked up with, I reconnected with a gentleman named Arthur Carrington. He is a tennis professional. His entire family is involved in the sport of tennis internationally. He's a teacher. It has an academy up in Amherst, Mass. His son is traveling with his daughter, who is on the international circuit, and he's training her. I think she's 16, maybe even 17 now. They're down in Florida, and she's training to coming up. She's going to be one of those young people that you see coming up through the ranks. But you know, his entire family has made a living in the field of tennis.
Well, you know, one thing that you really impressed me with was when you put together this program to go down to Tallahassee, and we took that van load of people down there, and I think we took about 6 or 8 boys down there from the project, housing project, that had never even, I don't even know if they knew how to spell tennis.
No.
But those jokers was really socialized into a very unique situation. What's the purpose of exposing them to that kind of a tournament?
One of the things when I was growing up, one of the highlights of being involved in sports was being able to get out of town, to travel with the team, you know. And in order to get out of town with the football or the basketball team, you had to be dressing. You know, you had to be a part of the team, but you had to dress, be a player. Okay. The difference with a tennis team is you don't have to be a player, but you can go along because you never know when you may have to step in if somebody gets injured or what have you to play. So you don't have to be a player to play, but you do have to, you know, just go. And the fact is that you're going to the various different cities, you're going to be communicating with other people who have the same interests, and they're all accomplished. You know, we're not talking about people who are just doing it for sports. We're talking about doctors, we're talking about lawyers, we're talking about professional people, business people. They say golf is the one that you go and do business with. Well, with tennis, not only you do business, but you also show your skills. You know, you exploit your skills.
And you maintain that healthy.
You maintain a healthy lifestyle,
Oh, yeah.
you know, as well. Because in order to get out and play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3, as in the pros, they play 5 setters, you have to be in condition. And you have to treat your body right. Because if you don't, you're not going to last.
What are some of the basic rules in tennis that you must apply yourself to and learn in order to be good and competitive?
Well, you got to practice. Basically, you know, practice basic skills and get out and just hit as many balls as you can. I mean, Venus and Serena, they spend at least 5, 6, 7 hours on the court hitting balls, just repetition.
Per day?
Per day.
Gee.
You know, and in order to do that, you have to have a healthy diet. You drink plenty of water. Your water's got to be good, and that's key. You know, because you got to stay hydrated. Okay, and you have to have, you know, like a boxer, it's one-on-one. So you have to develop that mental toughness. You know, and that is something that I'm hoping to be able to connect with. If I can connect with some professional boxers and get them down here, because it's a mindset. You know, it's you against the other person on the other side of the net, and you're winning just by stepping on the court. Okay, because you become a part of a rare group that can even get out there, you know, and deal with that.
Now, I guess body language has something to do with it too, right? Being able to watch your opponent and
Yeah.
figure out what they are doing before they
Yeah,
do it to get
you know.
yourself positioned.
You have to be able to anticipate, you have to know geometry, you have to know physics, all of that, because everything comes into play. The elements, you know, you have to be able to adjust your game based on the weather, you know, wind, the ability of your opponent to hit the various types of ball, the various different types of spin. You know, there's so many nuances to the game. If anybody plays what they call ping pong or table tennis, you know, you could appreciate what it's like playing on a bigger table.
Right. Now, the lady that it was named in the tournament that we went to in Tallahassee, who was she?
Maggie Coffey. She was one of the founders of the tennis group down there, and she dedicated her life to extending the sport to the community.
And that's an annual.
It's an annual. It's the 21st. They said, you know, they've grown now. You know, 21 years old. So this is their 21st tournament that they've had. Tallahassee and FAMU are the alumnus of Althea Gibson as well. You know, in fact, they just put up a historical marker, you know, for her this past year. You know, the club did. So that's one of the things that I hope to be able to get the kids down to see, you know, that they were a part of. The American Tennis Association and the black colleges were all in one. It was what we had, you know, it was our counter. You know, just like before blacks were able to play baseball, we had the Negro leagues. That was the same thing with tennis. But we're still going. It's 100 years old, and it still is the way for young people, black young people, to get involved in the sport, to hone their skills, and then to move on, if they want to move on into professional ranks.
Okay, now, the courts in this area now are really out of whack. So what do you need from the community in order to get things whipped back into shape where we could have tennis back on the forefront, as well as competitive conferences here for people to come and compete?
I need an interest. I need young people who want to step out, stretch themselves out, and become a part of a team. I mean, again, there were 4 teams when I left here. I created one team, and I've got a few older gentlemen from the community that are playing with me now, but we need more. We need the youth. And just to develop the skill, we need the interest. You know, and to know that you can go someplace with this. I mean, if you develop enough skill, you can get a tennis scholarship to any college in the world.
So what do you need from the affluent people here with the money and the bucks that could help get those courts back in shape?
Well, we need money. I got an estimate last year to do the Green Fork and the Abbott courts. We're talking about maybe $150,000 is what they say it would cost. Now, maybe it can be done for less, but we need money. And the monies that the Parks Department has, I don't know what has happened. You know, there's no pool, or there was a pool. I think they opened that last year. But, you know, I'm not involved in the politics of what runs the community. All I know is that, you know, it takes money to maintain a court, but not a lot. But what we need are some courts to play on. You know, I was very disappointed to take those kids down to Tallahassee last year to come back there ready to go, and I got no place to take them. You know, I think you saw the photos of the condition of the courts out at Abbott and over at Green Fork.
Right, right. So what are you doing now to try and get that money? Are you making public appeals, and I know this message is going out, and I hope some people respond to this. But are you going to try and go fund me and those kinds of things?
We will get to that, but first I need to have the bodies. I need to have the bodies with the interest to learn to play the sport.
Okay.
Once I get the bodies that want to get involved, then I can say, okay, now let's raise to make this happen. Eventually, I would like to have a tennis academy, you know, here. I'm a member of a Nature's a Garden for Victory and Peace, and we've got 25 acres, of which they've agreed to allow me to establish a tennis academy there. But first, I need people. I need people who want to learn to play the sport, and we can train them. And
Okay.
people will come from all over just to play on good court surfaces.
So I'm gonna put my email address on the screen, I'm gonna put your email address on the screen, my telephone number, your telephone number, and hopefully
Lord.
somebody will bite on an opportunity to revitalize something in this community that undoubtedly can take you to
You can go
places
any-
unknown.
go anywhere in the world. I mean, one of the things that I know that, I've got cohorts who are traveling around the world now, and they have to be in their 70s, because I'm 75, playing with 90-year-olds throughout the world, and they're being paid.
So
to do
now,
this.
you have different age groups
Yes. Yes,
in competition?
in competition.
And what are those groups? Are they broken out in certain?
The open goes up to age 35, and then from 35, they start to break them up every 5 years. 35, 40, 45, 50, they go all the way up to 90.
So therefore, when you step back on the court, say like you're out for 15 years, then you decide it's in your DNA and you want to go back. So you step back on the court, you don't have to worry about no young whippersnapper that's going to come out there and run you to death.
Right.
You coming into an age range where you all are competitive with each
Along
other.
in your own age group.
And that's a beautiful thing about it right
Yeah.
there.
You're competing against, from all over the country, you're competing against people in your same age group, same skill level. It's just a matter of how healthy are you, to be able to get out there and play. And, we're not playing on hard surfaces, we're playing on clay the majority of the time, which is a lot easier on the body.
Okay. Now let me take you to another area that's very special to me, and that is your mother. You are a very unique black man because you are taking care of your mother in a royal fashion. Where does that come from?
I don't have a choice. I'm an only child.
Yeah, but so many mothers got one child and they are alone and in a nursing home someplace, and that only child is out boogieing and going through changes.
Well, that's not the way I was raised. Like I said, the village raised me, and now I'm back because she refused to cooperate with life in New York. So now I'm back. My primary job is taking care of her. The rest of it is trying to give back to the community what I received when I was a kid. You might say I'm in my second childhood. I'm trying to have more fun in my second childhood than I had in my first.
Yeah, that's one way you put it. But I tell you, man, you are just to be commended the way that you look out for that woman. Now, what was your profession? What you do? You were in New York all of those
55
working
years.
years?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what were you doing up in New York?
Well, I started out in the post office for 7 years, community service for 7 years, and the balance in the financial. I ran an insurance brokerage, and also developed a real estate agency that my son took over, and he currently is doing that now. He's running his own real estate brokerage, in New York. So as I said, my mother refused to cooperate with New York weather and New York lifestyle, so here we are.
Yeah, that is just commendable, man. And I just had to say that to you, I've said it a couple of times, but I need to say it where everybody in the world that can hear this video will know that you at least one black man who has the love, trust, and respect for your mother, that you stand with her through thick and thin, like mama stick with babies and sons through.
Well, had it not been for her, I wouldn't be here.
Well, that's absolutely.
So, that's that. And we've got a lot of, she's 93 now, and we've got a lot of Octarians living here. And a lot of it has to do with the environment. We've got good water, and I make sure that, we get good water, good food, we very seldom eat out unless we know who is preparing the food and that it's being prepared, the way that we're getting all the nutrients that we need to get out of it, because that's what it's all about, take care of the body, and I'm constantly in training, you know, because in order to stay on the court, you have to be in shape. You know, it's no fun when you're aching. There's no fun with pain.
All right, then. All right. Okay, well, anything, I want you to look at that camera and tell the people what you want to tell them. I think we hit most of the
Yeah, we got
preliminary areas, and we're going to come back to this. This is just a preliminary appeal, and then we will come back with some more specific appeals as you create some kind of a process for getting this thing reestablished. Go ahead and tell people what you want them to know.
But right now, as of today, we've got 13 days before May 20th and the tournament in Tallahassee, and I need as many contributions as possible to make the trip affordable for the youngsters that we're going to take down. I am sending out a shout or an appeal for 2 of the high schoolers to compete in a essay writing contest about ATA and Tuskegee. There's a book written by Arthur Carrington called Black Tennis, 1890 to 1962, that's available in the local library that they can do research on, or you can Google it and find out about tennis in Tuskegee and the whole history of it. And if they write an essay and that they are successful in making sense out of it, we will take 1 male, 1 female with us on the trip to Tallahassee. They don't have to be tennis players, just show an interest in wanting to get out of town for that one day. Actually, it's a day and overnight in Tallahassee.
But you're hoping the bug bites them. Huh?
We are hoping the bug bites them and they'll come back wanting to do it. Because when you get down there and you see all these other young black, you know, and there will be some whites there as well, because the white players know the competition level that you find in the American Tennis Association is high, and they want to compete as well. You know, so everybody is trying to make their mark. You know, because there's a ranking system, and as you play, the more tournaments you play, you get a ranking system. You know, and you become nationally ranked. You know, so you get bragging rights. You know, I'm good at this. You know?
And I bet you got a lot of old folks out there bragging about how good
yeah.
they used to be. Right?
Well, yeah. You know, trophies. You know, like we went down last year. We didn't win, but we were in the finals. So we got a trophy for being in the finals. So this year, I hope that the team that I'm taking down will win the iron first place. You know, that's our goal. You know.
Okay, my brother. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you taking the time.
I thank you, and I appreciate the
I
opportunity.
hope these people listen to you. I hope you get your tennis game revitalized in this town.
Yeah.
And I will do whatever I can to help you.
I appreciate it, you know, because if it were not for you, we wouldn't have been able to get there last year. Bethel donated the transportation and you know, as a driver to get us there safely.
That's the way Bethel Baptist Church does it. They stay involved in what's happening. All right.
And there were several other people in the community who contributed financially, and we're reaching out again to for as much financial support as possible. Tennis, Tuskegee Institute Community Tennis Club is reaching out, asking for your donations, and you make them payable to Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace. That's a nonprofit that we're working under, and you can get your tax deduction from that. So no contribution is too small, and please be generous.
All right. Thank you, sir.